Hi, everyone. I'm Mike from Zilla Blitz,
And I'm Kevin Bertram from Fort Circle Games.
and we'd like to welcome you to the Shores of Tripoli Online Tournament of Champions preview episode. Now, in this tournament, I noticed we've got a number of teams that are just starting out. We're right at the beginning of the tournament. Do you want to talk a little bit about any of the other details and changes and rule modifications or things that people need to know if they're starting out playing?
I think there's some important things I should let the people know. So we currently have 44 teams. That's 176 players, and those matches are all ongoing now. Because of the large number of participants, we've decided to add a championship week. So after the 4 rounds, the top 2 teams will play for the grand prize, and then any individual player who has a top record, whether that's 8-0 or 7-1, we'll see how the tournament progresses. They'll all be in an elimination bracket, which will run in that championship week. We have also, I just want everyone to know that we'll be awarding a Toys for Tots Player of the Week every week. And that is a mostly quantitative decision, but obviously people need to finish their rounds in time for it to be considered, and we'll be working on that quite astutely. I want people to try to finish their rounds by Friday, because then Mike and I will be doing round wrap-ups every Saturday and hopefully posting them on Sunday. But obviously if your game has went over a little bit, that's okay, but we'd prefer you to finish them in a timely note. There are 3 important things I want to remind players about the games. The first is that we are using the Fortress Tripoli variant, which is described on the website, and it's also on Board Game Geek. Second is that a minor rules clarification. If the United States loses on the assault on Tripoli, then the United States loses the game. The card says victory on death, or death on it for a reason. And finally, don't pay too much attention to those naval prestige points, which we previously had called pirate points in the rulebook. They're being calculated on the side. Those are just for ranking ties in rankings, so don't be overly concerned about that. Win your game if you can at all costs.
Now, we have, I've noticed in our list here, we have almost 44 teams and almost 180 participants coming through us from all over the world. And I'm wondering, maybe should we take a look at some of these teams and some of the individuals that are playing? Should we start with our international teams? Anything we want to talk a little bit about with them?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so we have 8 international teams that I'm very excited about. I'm just going to list them off and kind of talk about them a little bit. Team Monrovia is a team of diplomats from Liberia. They were a late entrant, and I'm totally happy that they're going to be participating. The Snafu Store, which is a war game store in Barcelona, has a team. MOD Culture is a UK team, has something to do with Ministry of Defense, some kind of think tanky thing. They're a little secretive of what exactly they do. There's a team of players from the UK that are just players who are the Royal Navy. Team Sunflower is a team that you want to keep an eye on. It's for European players who I think are some of the most experienced players on the Rally of the Troops site. So that's probably my international favorite heading into the tournament. And Team Sunflower is named, of course, in honor of Ukraine. House Cedarstrom is also going to be a pretty good team. They are named for the Swedish admiral who participated in the First Barbary War. There's 2 Swedes on that team, and I think someone from Ireland and someone from Austria. Poutine Triumphant might be my favorite team name. That's a Canadian team, and looking forward to see how they do. And then Legendary Tactics is a media team that is based in Canada, and they do card examinations of all kinds of games, Twilight Struggle and the like. They have 3 Canadians and 1 Lithuanian, and so that's a pretty excellent group of international teams.
Yeah, there's certainly an international flair to it as well. And we have a number of teams from the US as well, right?
Yes. So I think my favorite team that entered is the USS Constitution Museum, because, as most of you know, although the USS Constitution is far more famous for its battles in the War of 1812, was definitely a participant in the First Barbary War. And I love their museum. I think you're a fan of their museum as well, Mike. So I'm glad they're participating. We have a team representing Labyrinth Games and Puzzles here in Washington, D.C., which is, I think, the best game store in the world. It's fantastic. Highly recommend, if anyone comes to D.C., to visiting the store. There's a team of designers. Their team name is Glorious Marine Task Force, which you'll notice is acronym for GMT, and that's Jason Matthews, Mark Herman, Vocal Runke, and Harold Buchanan. So I think it's a real joy if anyone gets to play that team, because those are obviously some of the best known designers in our industry.
I'm also really curious to see how I can see them going 0-32, and I can see them going 32-0. So it's kind of
Yes,
it depends how it's going to turn out.
They might just be operating at such a high level that they don't do well, or they might just beat us all to death. So we'll see what happens. Right. So there's another team of designers, though, you should watch out for, Shadow Dawn. So we'll see how they do. And then this isn't my first rodeo running an online tournament. I used to run an online tournament for the old classic Fortress America from Milton Bradley game. And the Fortress America Players Association has a team, the FAPA Wolverines. So I'm interested to see how they do.
And I've noticed some teams from the military as well, with various military connections that are involved with the tournament too.
Yes, there's a few of those. So Team Krulak is named in honor of the Brute Krulak Center, which is down in Quantico, where the Marines think up various better ways to increase lethality and such. The Littoral Commanders is headed up by Sebastian Bay, who is literally the hardest working man in wargaming. He runs the Georgetown University Wargame Society. He teaches at the Naval Academy. He works for CNA. He's just an overwhelming presence in the world of wargaming. The Gustav Infection, I think that's some Naval War College folks. There's a team called the Commodores, which represents IDA, another one of those acronym organizations here in DC. And then we have the Warfighting Society and 3 teams representing CSIS. So that's a good group of kind of military think tanky kind of folks involved in the tournament.
And another cluster I noticed is media teams, right? We have a number of teams that are connected to media production in some way or another.
Well, so the Plumpy Chits and Love Club, who have the best flag in the tournament, certainly are participating.
I think we can show that, right? And it's I'm just wondering where they're getting all this funding to produce such amazing artwork.
They're clearly backed by some big money. So,
yes.
And that's actually just 4 different individual YouTube personalities, and I think they're great. Two Can Play That Game is a site that focuses on 2-player games. And a little secret is my wife is playing on that team, so I'm going to be, neutral tournament director, but I'm certainly hoping that team does well. No Dice, No Glory is Mitch Reed and his band of merry folks. And then we should, Legendary Tactics, who is an international team, but is also, of course, a media team as well.
And one of the things that's impressed me as I've followed kind of the development of the Shores of Tripoli is its involvement in education. And I know there's also a number of school teams that are participating too.
So I'm very excited that we have 3 teams from the U.S. Naval Academy. The game is used in the classroom there. It's sold in their bookstore. And so, and my father-in-law went to the Naval Academy, so I have a strong tie to them. There's also a team from the Virginia Military Institute. The undergraduate board gamers at Georgetown have a team. Grove City College has a team. There's a team called Purdue Forces, and I was confused as to what that was, and I looked it up, and it's actually it's a riff on 4 S's, and their program is called the Strategy, Security, and Social Systems Initiative, and so I like that 4 S's, forces. And then we have 3 teams from a high school, the Thomas McLaren School, and they've been their instructor Dakota has been using the game in the classroom, and they decided to enter some teams. So we have 3 teams, and I noticed their early results just peaking. They seem to be doing okay.
Nice. Very nice. And other teams of note. Anything else we want to mention?
Yes. Well, I want to mention there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 teams that were just groups of people who like to play, and a lot of Kickstarter backers. Thank you, all you Kickstarter backers. And I'll just kind of list them out. A lot of them were created geographically. So the Rocks of Gibraltar, they have their own logo, so they're going to do well. And I would say they're actually my domestic favorite. If you have an international favorite, this is the domestic favorite. East Coast Bias, Jurisprudence, Masterminds, California Dreamin', the Flyover Titans. I'm a fan of the Flyover Titans because I grew up in flyover country, and their captain, Christopher Ball, has been one of the best backers in the world. The Patriots, the A-Team, Wombats on Ice, and then Graybeards, which is also a few designers who are also but just gamers. So it's a packed crowd. I mean, I've picked out two of my favorites, but frankly, this is like the FA Cup or March Madness, in that a team that no one's heard of can go really far and do really well. So I'm excited to see what happens in the tournament.
Yeah, and the platform is certainly easy to play, certainly easy to get involved with, and I just think it's going to really draw in. Just seeing the activity on Twitter and on social media around the tournament, it certainly looks like it's going to play out in some exciting and unexpected ways.
Boy, let's hope so. I think this is going to be a lot of fun.
Right. And now, one of the things that you wanted to do is to introduce people to the history of the First Barbary War, a little bit the background behind the game. And so we have a piece prepared. Do you want to introduce that piece a little bit?
Yes. So Abby Mullen, each video will be giving a little brief overview of the war. Abby Mullen will be joining the U.S. Naval Academy's history department next year, and she has a forthcoming book on the First Barbary War. It's what she wrote her dissertation on. She's, one of the 5 people in the world who knows the most about the First Barbary War. So I think we can learn a little bit from her.
Let's watch.
The First Barbary War centered on the United States and Tripoli, one of the 4 Barbary states. For hundreds of years, the Barbary states had declared that any nation without a peace treaty with them was in fact at war. These peace treaties often included significant monetary payment to the Barbary state, and also payment in maritime stores that would keep Barbary vessels in fighting form. If no treaty was in place, Barbary corsairs could attack and capture European or American ships at will. Captured ships were sold, and their crews were taken into captivity. This system of terror is often called piracy, but it really isn't. It was state-sponsored extortion and commerce raiding. Most European nations opted to sign peace treaties with the Barbary states, but the cost of these treaties could be exorbitant. When the United States had to negotiate treaties with each Barbary state after declaring independence, things went bad pretty quickly.
As Abby noted, the Tripolitan economy ran on the twin pillars of state-sponsored extortion and commerce raiding, or as we call them in the game, tribute and piracy. Because it was such an integral part of their economy, the designer did not create a specific card for the Tripolitans to raid, but instead, the Tripolitan player discards any card from their hand to conduct a pirate raid. However, the Tripolitan player does have battle cards that come into play when raiding. Happy Hunting allows the Tripolitan to roll 3 additional dice when raiding. Merchant Ships Converted allows the Tripolitan player to gain an additional Corsair after a successful raid. Lastly, US Signal Books Overboard can cause the American player a real headache, as they must discard a card at random from their hand. Tripoli's allies, Algiers, Morocco, and Tunis, all can declare war and engage in their own raiding, although the Tripolitan player must play specific cards to do so. One of Tripoli's big gun cards is Yusuf Karamanli, which allows the Tripolitan player to raid from Tripoli and all of its active allies at once. The American player has a few tools to deal with Tripoli's allies. While patrolling or attacking directly are options, there are 2 cards that will take a Tripolitan ally right out of the game: a Show of Force, which historically happened with Morocco, and Tribute Paid, as the Americans did particularly with Algiers. Of course, a Show of Force requires 3 frigates, and Tribute Paid, while only requiring 1 frigate, also costs 2 precious gold pieces. Join us again next week as we look at more cards from the shores of Tripoli. So we've seen a little bit about the history of the First Barbary War, and we've got a few tips and advice on some of the key cards in the game. Now, as we head into this first week of matches, is there anything in particular that's any teams you're watching or matchups you're keeping an eye on?
Well, I'm definitely keeping an eye on Team Krulak. They claim that they're going to be taking that painting and hanging it in the center. But they've got a tough matchup against Jurisprudence. So we'll see how that matchup goes. Certainly in the first round.
And I know that Plumpy Chits and Love Club has mentioned that they're going to be claiming that top prize too. Now, I don't know. We'll see how they start out here, but that could be an interesting team to watch. And their logo is certainly amazing.
Absolutely. Well, and as I said before, that team of designers, the Glorious Marine Task Force, they're definitely I mean, I think just because of the star power of that team, that's our celebrity team. We should see. I'm definitely watching to see how they do.
And I know you mentioned Team Sunflower in the start, and I know that the Board Game Chronicles has been tweeting a lot about his kind of investment in playing well. So I'm curious to see how their first week goes, because I do think they potentially are one of the stronger teams in the tournament.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Although I wouldn't sleep on the Littoral Commanders. So that's Sebastian Bay's team, and they talk a good game. We'll see if they play a good game, but they certainly talk a good game. And they have an opponent, the Warfighting Society, that certainly should be a good matchup. So I'll definitely be checking in on those matches.
And I have some emotional heroes here that I'm rooting for. Thomas McLaren School, I'm excited to see high school students participating, and I think I would not underestimate them. I bet they can have some pretty positive and strong results going forward too. So I'm rooting for them, waving their flag.
Well, I know they were practicing a lot before the tournament, and that counts for a lot, though. Also, there's the Rocks of Gibraltar matchup that I'm excited about. They're playing against House Cedarstrom, and that's the Swedish-led team against a top American team. So, I think that one, those are teams both I think will be in the running for the finals. So,
right. And I think the other team that I want to mention, I'm originally from Boston, and I've been to the USS Constitution Museum probably a half dozen times. And it's one of my favorite museums because of the work they do and how they work with the kind of teaching and bringing the content to life for people that visit the museum. So I have high hopes for them, and I'm going to be waving their flag as well.
I have high hopes for that team as well. I think I'm going to probably close on my last matchup that I'm looking for. East Coast Bias has some good players, and then the Flyover Titans, as I mentioned, Christopher Wallace's team. I think that's going to be a great matchup. And there's so many teams, though. I mean, there's the Naval Academy teams and the CSI's teams. I mean, anybody could win this tournament, and that's what's really exciting about it. So.
And it's an amazing array of teams and individuals and stuff. And if you've got a favorite team or player involved, drop them down in the comments. Who do you think is going to come out on top of this at the end of the 4 and 5 week adventure here? So we're looking forward to see as we start off the first weeks. I think that's probably how we'd finish up, is to just wish all the competitors and teams the best of luck. I mean, the goal is obviously fun, but it is a competitive tournament. So that blend of fun and energy and competitiveness should make for a great tournament. And we will be back next week, right, for our first week wrap up. So thanks everybody for tuning in. If you've enjoyed this, please give it a like, and we'll see you in a week for the wrap up of the first week's action.